A Quiet Place Day 1 is now playing in theaters and follows a young woman in New York on the day the aliens arrived on Earth as she seeks out to find that last piece of pizza that remains in New York City. There's a little bit more to it than that, but I'm not joking. And with this being a prequel, I did go in with hesitations because I love A Quiet Place. And the reason why I love A Quiet Place is not because of the monsters, it's not because of all the destruction. It is because at its core, it is a very human story. And it is a family story. It really is essentially a family drama. And the monsters are just kind of the background setting for the story to take place. So going back to day 1, where the aliens are arriving for the first time, they're landing in the loudest city in the world, in New York City. There was a lot about this movie that I was worried about. Is it going to lose the heart? Is it going to lose the humanity core that I love about A Quiet Place? And starting off, first off the bat, no. It did not lose any of that, because while A Quiet Place Day 1 does take place when these aliens first arrive, no one knows the rules, no one knows what's going on. There's animals, there's cars, there's sirens going off all over New York City. These things that are attracted to sound, they're probably going to get some people, and get people they do. But the movie never loses sight of what I loved about A Quiet Place, and that is the characters and the journey that the characters go on. And they do that, they replicate that very well with these characters played by Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn. And Joseph Quinn, he definitely comes later into the movie, but when he does come in, the dynamic that he develops between Lupita Nyong'o really does work for this movie, because essentially what this movie is these characters holding on to their humanity while they're watching humanity crumble and fall apart in devastation around them. And much like the Quiet Place Part 1 and Quiet Place Part 2, that is the thing in this movie that I really latched onto, because Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn, they turn in really good performances in this movie. I'm not going to act like we get to know that much about their characters. Lupita Nyong'o, we definitely get to know a lot more about. I mean, we are following her journey and her quest for pizza. That is the cornerstone of this movie. And Joseph Quinn kind of comes in as a stranger that meets her within the chaos and teams up with her and goes along with her on her quest. But throughout the movie, they do develop a pretty nice and sweet friendship. And that is something that I was very happy to see, that while this movie is a prequel, while this movie is focusing more on the destruction and just the downfall of humanity in this moment, they still kept that look, that peek into humanity at the core of the story, with these two characters following their journey through this wasteland. And I was very, very pleased to see that. Also, I'm not gonna lie and say that I didn't have fun with the alien invasion. It is fun to watch destruction, to watch big cities get destroyed. And they do a really great job depicting just the devastation of this event. Not even just the devastation. They show just the dread. You feel it in the first couple minutes of this movie. The movie does a really good job of setting up just how loud New York City is, just how much devastation is about to enter your eyeballs as you're watching the screen. And when the moment happens, when you see those alien ships, when you see them coming down from the sky, landing in the city, and people just start getting taken out left and right, admittedly off screen for the most part, not gonna lie about that, but still, they have a lot of fun with this concept of what is the first day going to look like, especially in New York City. They have a lot of fun playing with that, and I thought they executed it pretty well for the most part. And it being a prequel, it does come with the challenge of, we have seen A Quiet Place. We have seen these monsters before. We've seen this scenario before. We even know how these monsters are eventually going to be defeated by John Krasinski and his family. So what are you going to show us in a prequel that adds more to the lore, that adds more to the story? And I will say that for the most part, I don't feel like A Quiet Place Day 1 really did that. One thing that I was really excited to go into a Day 1 and see is, how did humanity develop the skills? How did John Krasinski and Emily Blunt and their family develop the skills, maybe learn through the grapevine of how exactly to exist in this world? Why do you need to be quiet? I was really looking forward to seeing that in Day 1 of how they discovered that, and they don't really show you how they discover that. I know the rules of, you stand behind louder objects so that your noise gets covered up by the louder noise so the aliens don't get you. We saw that in A Quiet Place. And apparently so did the characters in Day 1, because there's really no explanation as to how characters get there. We don't really get to see the progression of how people learn that you need to be quiet. It just kind of is, the aliens arrive, and then everyone needs to be quiet. They just instinctively know. I'm sure there's a deleted scene out there, maybe somewhere about that scene. Maybe it just added to the runtime, wasn't necessary. But for me, there were aspects of this movie that I was looking forward to seeing. Okay, so we're going to find out the nuggets of how this leads into A Quiet Place. And they just didn't do that very well for me. They do have some fun tie-ins, like I won't give anything away, but there is a character in here that is connected to A Quiet Place Part 2, and the movie kind of leads into A Quiet Place Part 2, or at least an aspect of A Quiet Place Part 2 that I wasn't really expecting, but it was a pleasant surprise to see in here. And addressing the main bulk of the story, because this is a story about a girl who is looking to find a last pizza during a apocalypse situation. The movie does have a sentimentality reason for it. There is a deeper emotional reason as to why this girl wants that pizza so badly. There's just a little bit in the execution that didn't fully bring that idea to realization for me. For me, I feel like the emotional moment needed to hit stronger. I understood why she wanted the pizza. It just wasn't executed to the fullest, I personally believe. Also, I do feel like A Quiet Place movies, they come with suspension of disbelief, but there does come a point where you're just kind of like, okay, you can be as quiet as you want. That wouldn't work. And for me in this movie, it was the dang cat. Lupita Nyong'o's character not just carries around, but has this cat follow her around the entire movie. And in a movie where you can't make any sound, this was the most well-trained cat I've ever seen in my life. This thing didn't make a peep. There is a scene where a character and this cat are drenched in water, and that cat is chill as a cucumber. Have you ever owned a cat and gotten it wet while you were holding it? You're coming out with more than a few scratches. That thing is definitely making noise. This thing should at least purr at least once in its lifetime in this movie, and it doesn't. And that's a nitpicky thing, and I can totally admit that. That is a nitpicky thing. It's not a big deal that she had a cat that was the most quiet animal in existence, but it was always in the back of my mind that thing's not going to make any noise at all. Look, maybe I'm just a terrible person, but if it was me, I'd ditch the cat. I'm just saying, you ditch the cat. Another thing about the New York setting, though, that I will say, I do feel like they could have utilized it just a little bit more. There was nothing in the movie specifically, I would say, past the first 30 minutes or so that made it feel like it was distinct to New York. It felt like this could have been any other city, any other place in the world. The fact that it was New York, it just happened to be New York. Although I do hear New York has like the best pizzas ever. So maybe that was why they picked New York. But all my hesitations and all my fears aside about what this prequel was going to be like, I actually think they did a pretty good job with it. I was thoroughly entertained for the most part. It does slow down a little bit in the second act here and there, but I really enjoyed the characters. I definitely enjoyed the performances. The chaos and destruction was a lot of fun, and I did feel like the core of what I loved about the Quiet Place movies was still intact. So for that reason, I'm going to give Quiet Place Day 1 a solid recommend. And that's what I thought about A Quiet Place, guys. What did you guys think about A Quiet Place? Have you had a chance to check it out yet? Comment down below. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions. I'd love to see them. As always, guys, thank you so much for hearing me out, and I hope to talk to you guys again real soon.